And it's
You're on the air.
7 o'clock. I'd like to call the meeting to order. This is the East Lyme Board of Finance regular meeting. Today is Wednesday, September 14th, 2022, and the time is 7 p.m. If all would rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next on the agenda is delegations, where any member of the public can address the Board of Finance on anything on the agenda tonight. Seeing as we don't have anyone here, I think we can move on to the approval of minutes. These are the regular minutes from the August 10th, 2022 meeting. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes, and are there any changes, corrections? All right, do I have a motion to approve the minutes of August 10th?
Okay, make a motion to approve the East Lyme Board of Finance regular meeting minutes for August 10th, 2022.
There's a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions?
I wasn't here.
Okay. So 4-0-1. Motion carries. Next on the agenda are the reports. First, our superintendent, Jeff Newton, is here. Do we want to switch to him?
Thank you. It's working much. There we go. Appreciate it. Thanks for the opportunity just to share a few thoughts. Two items in particular that I just wanted to bring forward. One, because it's become such an eyesore, the baseball field. I'm trying to get it out publicly everywhere that we're working diligently to get that field done. However, we with water restrictions and we're just it's not going to happen, right away. So if anybody asks, it's ready to go to seed and. But we just can't water yet, so we might end up just waiting until the spring. So if anyone asks you from the public, that's kind of where we're at. It's just right when you drive in, it's right there in front of you, and I keep getting all the jokes and fun comments. But unfortunately, with the lack of rain, that was an issue because it was ready to go. But so I just wanted to put that out there publicly. Second piece, the budget. This current year's fiscal budget. I just wanted to bring an update. We are still in a deficit. We've been talking with the board the last couple of meetings, sitting around $521,000 for continued deficit. That's that insurance increase that we had, going from the 5% to the 10.5%, which was unexpected. Very concerned with what insurance is going to do next year. We are already working on, starting to work on our budget and doing some mock trials of different numbers for next year, and looking at the whole package, basically, of where are areas we can work to make reductions, what our greatest needs are. Our first workshop is going to be in November, budget workshop, so I'll invite Board of Finance members to come to that again. We appreciate your input and having everybody at the table. We don't have the date set yet. It's going to be the middle of November, so as soon as we have that set, we'll get that out to you. So we will end up probably putting a freeze on this current year's budget to help offset costs and try and knock that deficit down. But it has been it's been a real struggle. Everything's up cost-wise too. So we're worried about electricity. We're worried about oil, salt as well. We're going to be covering the cost of salt, sharing with the town. We've got a meeting with Joe Bergaw next week. Myself and our facilities director, Chris Lund. So we try and do those, quarterly. Just have some conversations about, continued shared services wherever we can. We've shared in plowing and in some other areas, so we'll try every which way, to save dollars. So that's about it. I just wanted to keep the Board of Finance informed about, we're still continuing, with some woes with that deficit, but hopefully, freeze will help some, and we'll keep you posted as we move forward. Any questions at all?
So in terms of keeping us posted, will you be able to give us like regular, updates throughout the actions that you're taking to try to reduce that? Because obviously that's...
Happy to, yeah. I think the freeze will be the biggest piece. For this year, there's nothing more we can do other than there's no positions necessarily we can cut, or we will be cutting. But if there are any opportunities again for savings, we're going to try and find them. But the freeze will be the biggest one to see how much money we can capture. Obviously, that impacts everything, programs and so forth. But we're going to try and see how many dollars we can save out of that freeze. But I want to continue to come back and provide you with updates. And if there's numbers too that you want us to provide, we're going to keep informing the Board of Ed. I know members of the Board of Selectmen have been coming to our Board of Ed meetings, and we're happy to share any further information as we move forward and work through the coming months. So I know we'll quickly jump into next year's budget work, which for us starts early. Right at the end of this month, we'll start sending that information out to our principals. They work through October, and really right before Thanksgiving, we're getting all of their budgets and so forth. But we're trying to do again some mock rollovers to look at salaries and just to get us a flavor of what those increases, contractual increases, are going to look like, and then factoring in the potential for a higher health insurance. I haven't heard good positive things out of the state as to what the health insurance is going to be for next year. So that makes us nervous. And then inflation too. We all know that everything is up. So hopefully we'll have a mild winter and it won't be as cold, so heat will be down. But 4 out of our 5 buildings, or I should say 5 out of 6 are on natural gas. Niantic Center is the only one on oil. So that, price of natural gas isn't, through the roof, and oil is very high, but hopefully that will help us as well. So, Peter, you had a question?
Vacancies.
We do, yeah. A good question, Peter. I should have mentioned that too. Paraprofessional. We have well over 20 vacancies that are still open. We're trying to fill them. We've been contracting out with some services to help support. What we mainly need to support are the specialty programs where we have students that have individual education plans that require services and supports in the classroom, in hallways, in the lunchroom, recess. So we are robbing Peter to pay Paul right now and just borrowing from one place to the other. It's what happened a lot last year and was not good. It kills morale for sure, and people are taxed. We ended up having to pay folks more money on top of what their typical hourly rate was. So that's a budget impact. We're already starting to do that this year, but the people just aren't out there that want to come to work. So we're going to try and do a recruitment hiring fair coming up sometime in the near future. We're trying to think of some outside the box things to do to try and bring forth more paraprofessionals to help support our programs and our kids. So hopefully, and we're not the only district. Obviously, every district is struggling with filling those positions for sure. Teachers, we're in good shape. It is hard to find some long-term subs. We've got a lot of people that are having babies, post-COVID, and so we're filling long-term sub positions for people out on maternity leave. But we've so far we've been lucky in that sense in getting good people. So, but thank you, Peter, for bringing that up. Any other questions or things I can answer? Again, we'll keep coming back and keep you informed. I want to make sure you're well aware of our continued fiscal climate, and we'll go from there.
Right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Next under reports is Mr. Siri, our first selectman.
Good evening. Jeff started off talking about water restrictions. That has been a major concern. We're way over our allotment from New London this summer. We have so many gallons that we've budgeted for. If we go beyond that, they still continue to give it to us, but there's a little bit more of a cost involved, but it's nothing that is something that will cause any concern or anything like that for any of the ratepayers for water. It's something that we can handle as of right now. One of the things to address what Jeff said, he asked if we could allow them to start irrigation to water up there. So I said, since considering how important it is, I didn't think it was a problem, so I talked with the utility engineers. It is a problem as far as what our wells are at right now. There's concern, so if they have concern, you know, as much as I'd like to say, yeah, we'll make an exception here, it's just something they're not comfortable with right now. Even though we've had a few days of rain, it hasn't quite got us where we hope to be right now. So that's one of the reasons why we're still holding that restriction in. Most people, you know, it's voluntary right now, it's for almost all of them, and, you know, if someone's watering their lawn in the middle of the night, we don't know about it, obviously. But it was basically, the restriction is for people who have irrigation systems. We have seen a drop once we put that in, so it looked like we had some good compliance from the residents in town regarding that. Moving on, well, I'll stick on the water thing right here. Chemicals that are required to treat the water to make it potable so we can drink it and use it have gone up considerably, gone up about 3 times what they were, where we used to be able to get a lock-in contract and a lock-in price for a year, and we've had meetings with DPH, Zoom meetings over the last couple of weeks. Those are probably going to be gone for a while because the providers' costs are coming, so we're dealing with that. But, you know, nothing that we have to get, you know, here again, that's a water and sewer budget. Our intent doesn't affect our operational budget, but it would affect the ratepayers for water as we move on, if that's the case too. Moving on, if you can see up by the old, by exit 75, Noble Gas is moving as far as getting towards completion. Don't have a date yet as far as when that'll be up, but that is moving right by exit 75. The mobile station, and we don't have to talk about it being demolished anymore. They're finally gone. I don't know when Bootleggers goes, but I would assume fairly soon. But that's been done right now, as everyone knows. Main Street, 185 Main Street. One of the things that has been up is they were hoping to be open by by July 4th. That did not happen. And that comes down to supply. They finally hit a snafu with supplies. They needed a junction box that provided a lot more amps than you can get right now. EB's in the same spot. It's not just a local problem. The building inspector has worked out a deal with them now, so that with a smaller junction box or connection box converter, they'll be able to open up just Sift Bakery and the condos. To open up the other 3, that'll take the full 1200 amp connection box, so that might be a little longer, but at least they'll get it partially open. Amtrak fence, still waiting. They're supposed to install that fence in Groton late in the fall. See if what we think about that. And as I keep reminding everybody before they say, well, make sure to just tell them, no, this is all we'll accept. We have to remember that it's not our fence, it's theirs. They can still put in what they want. So they've been extremely cooperative with us so far, so we keep that going. On the 27th of October at 6 p.m. at the high school auditorium, there'll be a presentation by the state and the engineer for the Route 161 corridor study that basically will cover what's going to be done from basically the entrance to the high school down to 161's intersection with 156, basically the whole length of it. And they'll cover a whole lot of details. I've gotten a couple partial drafts of what's going to be presented, and because they're partial drafts and they change on a regular basis, I haven't really passed them out, which I shouldn't since they're a draft. But it shows what they're going to do. It would be a really interesting thing, and how busy next spring is going to be up at that north end of town with the work at the connection. But it'll be very informative in October. Moving on, we've hired our new finance director, as you know. You'll hear from him in just a minute. But we've also made an offer to the IT director. We have our new public Parks and Rec director in place, and HR interviews are going to be next week. So things are moving, and it looks like we'll have people. We have a lot of really good people who applied for HR. We had over 40 applicants, and to narrow it down to about 10 or 12, then to narrow it down to a little smaller than that for the interviews was really difficult. Anna Johnson is retired. We had a nice little farewell for her here on the 30th. And then Dave Putnam retired last Friday. It was a nice event for him at Langley's last night, where he was recognized by several people, Miracle League, the Parks and Rec Association for the state. So it was a very nice send-off for Dave. It's not going anywhere. You'll see him at the on the 24th, which will be the Oyster Festival behind St. John's. He'll be there because that's a fundraiser for the Miracle League. And you'll also see him at a lot of other events that involve the Miracle League. Sticking with revenues from Parks and Rec this year have been higher than they've ever been. Dave said the highest they ever had was about 260. They were in the area of 300,000 this year for revenues. Lots of stuff to do that. They need to replace the raft at McCook's. It's old, and those are about $14,000 to $15,000 to replace. So, you know, they'll have some uses for those. Charter revision, the Board of Selectmen will be getting ready to come up with a charge for the charter revision at our meeting on the 21st. And the Board of Selectmen will recommend areas to the committee, the appointed committee to review. But that's not the end of it. There'll be public hearings where other members, and they'll also reach out to other boards and commissions to see what their input might be as far as concerns as well that they'd like to done. It's about a year process. There's a public hearing at the beginning and one towards the end. And then the Board of Selectmen ultimately could recommend some changes, send it back to the committee, and they can say, no, this is what we're sending you, and then we have to vote on that. And we've got several members that have indicated interest to be involved. These are people who have had long service to the town and elected in appointed positions and been active in town affairs for a long time. And the intent is at the next municipal election in November of 2023 that'll be voted on at that election. And I know one of the items we're talking about is the automatic going to, like, if tonight we're going to send something to a town meeting that is a grant that really kind of defeats the purpose of it. The Board of Selectmen acts on it, the Board of Finance acts on it. We spend $500 to put an ad in the paper. Gene Cushman could charge us, the moderator, he doesn't. So, you know, it's an expense just to appropriate money that we get for free, and we would like to look at a way to try to avoid that. I've talked with Kevin Gervais. I can't just say Kevin anymore. It's already been a problem in Town Hall a couple times. Someone said you could say young Kevin and old. I didn't like that one. We like Finance Kevin and Selectman Kevin. That worked out fine. And on a positive note, this Friday from 5 to 8, there'll be like a vintage car show and stroll on Main Street, so everyone come on down to that for a while and enjoy it. And after that, it's over. If you want to leave it a little early, there's a football game up north end of town between East Lyme and Wyndham. So, and fall sports, failed to mention, fall sports is in full swing. So that's really good. And I've been to a few soccer games and a field hockey game, so a lot of fun to go to. Any questions?
Did we get any, that well that they were refurbishing, did that ever come online?
Yes, well 5 is finished. The only thing that is not finished on that is, not finished, but we haven't gotten the generator for it. The old one is operational, there's nothing wrong with it, but it's something we want to replace. The lead time for a new one is a problem for that. And now we're getting ready to look at well 2, because we've got, you see what's happened in some parts of the country where, bad things have happened with water supplies. We've done well 1A, we've done well 6, we've done well 5, we're going to be doing well 2. We do have water main breaks, we've had a couple, but that happens with an aging system. And, it's not as if you can go, oh, it's going to break here tomorrow, so let's be ahead of the game.
Yeah, just gotta wait till they go.
But no, that well is back online, and, we're looking to use well 2, so.
I don't know if they gave us any help or not, or give us any kind of help. Or.
It has helped. And if we can get well 2 done over the next year, that'll help as well.
With the Charter Commission, has the committee been chosen yet? And
No,
how does that
that'll be
process
done. Here again, we had talked 9 to 11. Bill Weber made a good point. He served on a Charter Commission, not the last one, but the one previous to that. And he said, considering how many subcommittees you have on that, it's better to have, 9 is a stretch, 11 seems to be a better number. So the minority, there's same representation. You cannot have, if it's 11, you could not have more than 6 Democrats or 6 Republicans. We haven't really talked about that, but I know there's several unaffiliated voters that have a long history of involvement that would be very good on that too. So we're just looking for the best people who understand it, the charter and so forth like that. Like we want to do the cleanup, like town meeting. I mean, $10,000. The reason we aren't able to put the big garbage cans on Main Street before, right now is because of the fact that it was over $10,000 and we weren't going to do it have a town meeting just for one item, like we're doing tonight, but that's for something that has to be done. So unfortunately, that's one of the things we want to look at.
So basically, the Board of Selectmen choose the members.
Right, and we have asked for inputs. The Democratic members have reached out, and just like we've reached out to our committee as well. And you can have no more than 3 elected officials as members. And Board of Selectmen, we just talked and we figured that we could appoint a Board of Selectmen member, but we get to give them the charge and we get to vote on it again. So that gives that, as we've talked about in other issues, two votes on the same issue. So we thought that wouldn't be appropriate. Peter.
Back to the water, how far away from, in terms of the water restriction, how far away from lifting that are we?
I don't have a good answer for you right now. I know they're really concerned about it. There's some positive things starting to happen, but they want to see a sustained type of improvement in our. It's better than it was because summer's over, so our the charge or the demand has dropped off a little bit, but we want to make sure we are very comfortable about lifting those things. A lot of it's the governor's level 3 were all just voluntary, because the only mandatory we have right now is irrigating, and you can only do it twice a week. On a newly seeded field for a ball field, twice a week probably is not a good idea.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is our new Director of Finance. Welcome, Kevin Gervais, to your first Board of Finance meeting. And we kind of worked with Kevin a little bit, like what we would normally see in our meetings, but going back to him and saying, we welcome new ideas and new ways of doing stuff. So,
Paul, is there a way to get this TV screen on? No?
You're looking at the wrong guy.
We're volunteers.
Let me just,
Hey, it's on.
There we go. That's about.
If you one button, one push.
I asked for if there was a class that I could take.
I'm still on? You're still on? Okay.
No.
we
Look
are.
at that. I'm IT as well.
Okay.
Don't say that too loud.
I can save a lot of money.
No, you're just finance Kevin, that's all.
All right, yeah, finance Kevin. I don't want to be IT Kevin too. So before I start my presentation, I have 3 shout outs to make. Anna Johnson, congratulations on a great retirement. The 6 members of my family watching this right now live. And my former boss, the finance director of Brookfield, is also watching this live. She texted me. So shout out to Marcia. All right, so going through the presentation, we're going to go over just some of the things we're working on in the finance office. And then we'll go through and what's coming down the pike as well as to what we're doing. So, Nova Time. Apparently, this has been a project spearheaded by the HR office, and it's to bring the HR office, current on best practices, such as getting rid of carbon copy, vacation requests, time off requests, such as that. So this is an electronic system with scannable badges. Every building has a little machine so you can fob in, do it time in, clock out, clock in, lunches and everything like that. And that's going to import directly into right now MCSJ, our accounting software, and that'll also import into Munis when we roll that out sometime over the next year. So the go live date for this is January 23. So that gives us about 3 months to get the system up and running, test out all the bugs, make sure all the union contracts are in compliance with, the record keeping, overtime, all that stuff, and then make sure it imports into our accounting system to make sure everyone gets paid. Most important thing. So speaking about implementing new software, I think this has been going on for a couple years now, and I really hope to have this done as soon as possible. Munis, the accounting software, I don't know if any of you are familiar with Munis. I didn't think it was a great software until I started using MCSJ, and now I cry for Munis. So I had a call earlier this week with our rep for Munis, and they think a target date to go live would be January of 2024. And I said, that's like 14, 15 months out. That's crazy. I said, I would like to see this go live July 23. So that's our internal deadline. And I'm working with the Board of Ed, who's also going to be using the same system. So we're going to be combining the two financial softwares from the Board of Ed and the town into one system. That'll create better reports, easier reconciliations for the auditors, for us. And so as part of that, we have to import, we have to review 10,000 vendor files to say, okay, how many vendors have we used in the last 2 years? Importing all employee data into Munis, adding workflows. So instead of any paper, it's all going to be electronic. Everything's electronic and auditable. There'll be an audit trail in the system. So that's the nice thing about Munis. It gives the auditors a level of comfort knowing that you can't bypass a rule. It's the rule written in the software. And then training users, finance office, department heads, and administrators to roll out a new system. So I've got two big software projects. Munis is a little bigger. NovaTime has been, I'd say 75% there. Munis is about 3% there. So this is a really big project. So next, I spent a lot of time. I'll do another shout out. Scott Frazier, our treasurer. I think he's set up shop in my office. We've been in meetings for the last 2 weeks, talking to pretty much every bank in town, regional banks, and just trying to find good interest rates on the cash we have sitting in these accounts. So with the STIF rate, that's the short-term investment fund that the state of Connecticut runs. Currently, that's 2.35%, and a lot of our money is getting a lot less than that. So we're missing opportunity cost there on maximizing interest. So I'm looking to revamp some of the banking relationships while still keeping all the operating accounts the same. I'm just strictly talking at the moment of finding the best vehicle we can to maximize interest on the cash we're not using, in the next couple months. So it's not working capital. It's capital that's we're not going to use until the end of the fiscal year when things get tight. So and trying to maintain level of liquidity so we're not taking out loans and all that fun stuff. Also implementing best practices such as positive pay. 2 of our operating accounts had it and 2 didn't. So one of the first things I did was add that to all of the accounts that have withdrawals coming out of them, so we know any check that's not written and signed off by us, we reject it. All right, the financial statement audits, because there's 2 of them. So there's the fiscal year 21 audit, and I spoke with Ron Nossick earlier in the week, the engagement partner, and he's anticipating a September 30 filing date. It's sitting right now with the technical review team at CLA. So we're just kind of in a waiting position to see what kind of comments he has for us and go from there. We also need to finish the management discussion and analysis for that financial statement. And then also I noticed that the federal single audit wasn't completed yet. So that's not a huge undertaking, but they still have to come back and do testing over the federal grant monies we received over the 2 years ago. So that'll be fun, digging through boxes in the basement. And then the fiscal year 22 audit that just ended June 30, 2022. I have not yet started the process of closing the books, but we've stopped accepting 22 invoices. That was new this week. So if you have a bill, it's going in the current budget because you've missed the deadline and you had a grace period of 15 days or 14 days. So, because really it's a 60-day window for bills to roll over from the prior year. So right now we're in the process of closing all open purchase orders for 22, And our next job is going to be reconciling and tying out subsidiary ledgers to the balances to make sure no funny business and everything ties out. And then finally scheduling preliminary field work for the audit. The auditors still have to come back here and do internal control testing before they schedule field work for the audit. So that's a two-prong approach auditors take, and we haven't had either of them yet. And when I talked to Ron, I said, Ron, what's your timeline looking like? If we want it, he didn't want me to hold him to anything, but unless we give him everything, the books are closed and ready by October 15th. We are probably not going to make the December 31st deadline, so we're probably going to have to go on extension. So that was just what he said, full disclosure, all of his auditors are booked already. All the audit staff, they're booked throughout this is their busy season. And I said, can you get us here for preliminary field work? He said, the last time he came here for preliminary field work, he had to find work for them because there was we weren't giving them work. So he was hesitant of having, his staff assigned here and then not having them stuff to do. So he was a little hesitant about scheduling stuff until we can produce stuff for him. So I think we're going to be in better shape in fiscal year 22. We're not going to go to September, but maybe a few days into 2023 is my early guesstimate right now at the moment. All right. So just some of the best practices I was talking about. Selectman Siri, myself, and each department head are going to meet for quarterly budget meetings after September is closed. We're just going to look for any unforeseen expenses, changes in staff. Have they had to hire anybody? Have they had to let anyone go? Are there any overages? Are you running under on any accounts that we can, take money from and use it in places that have needs? Other things, purchase cards. Right now we have credit cards, and it's just a little bit of a nightmare if a payment's missed, or we have to call them and ask them to waive the interest. The state of Connecticut's State Controller's Office and the Department of Administrative Services, Procurement Services, that's correct, there's two services in there, they have a purchase card program. 23 municipalities, Norwich, Waterford, New London, Old Saybrook are all on it around us. And then there's 81 other not-for-profit entities, a lot of boards of ed. So all we have to do is send paperwork to the state of Connecticut, give them the employees we want to have a P card, and then it's just a streamlined process. There's no interest rates because they suck the money right out of our accounts. But that's where we should be. That's probably best practice for every municipality, instead of having credit cards and someone's social security number. And then the final one I want to bring up tonight, this will be ever changing every month, this best practice slide. And there might be some stuff rotating on it. Next month I'll have other best practices. Establishing a grant fund. Now, it sounded like we need a charter revision in order to do something like that, so I'll have to do some reading and read state statutes and the charter. That'll be a fun weekend project. But tracking and maintaining a fund for the multi-year grants would really help us for this lovely grant tonight. Could have been in the grant fund, and once the Board of Selectmen approve it that first time, it goes right in there, and then what are we buying with that? All kinds of good stuff. So we would need to go to town meeting for an additional appropriation. It would go right into the grant fund, multi-year fund, so it's set up until, whatever the grant guidance says. If it's a 3-year grant and then we give the rest of the money back, we could follow all of that, but it's a nice clean pocket of grant money that doesn't have to keep, additional appropriation after additional appropriation. And then just to touch on the budget and the operations, I cheated a little bit. I went with the interest rate again, just because I know that's going to be one of my points of contention all year. I think that rate we're going to get that pretty high this year. That's my hope. So right now, like I said, the stiff is currently at 2.35. That was as of yesterday. It might have even went up today. And next week, when the Fed raises the interest rates 100 bips, that'll go through the roof. And it might not be great for everybody, but it's great for a municipality with a lot of cash. So that'll really help our interest rates. So I don't know if it's a directly one-to-one relationship, but I imagine it's pretty close. So it's 235 now, so hopefully it'll be over, maybe over 3 in the next month or two. So, and that matters when we have, right after tax, we've collected tax collection. There's 30, 40 million sitting there. That's a really nice, that we could really stack up some cash in the investment earnings. So, and then just on the expense side, I know we're under budget, looks like on some payroll accounts. We haven't had an HR manager for a few weeks, maybe a month. So there's some savings there, but that's subject to change based on, hiring the next candidate. And then I know there's not much detail on the slide, and really next month it'll be 2 slides, one for revenue, one for expenditures. But I'm going to wait until after the quarterly meetings next month to really give you a good snapshot of where we are for that. And then just as far as the 2 budgets go, same thing on the operations. I really haven't had a lot of time to dig through all the accounts. We're just trying to schedule all my meetings, get them done, and actually start digging in the books. So same thing with capital. I'll meet with all the departments, break down each capital project. So maybe next month I'll have actually a capital project work paper to go with this, and then just have highlights, any capital projects that are running under, any that are anticipated to go over, and yeah, go from there. So.
Well, thank you very much, Kevin. I also kind of encourage the board to, as they went through your presentation, if there's things that they would like to see in it.
Absolutely.
Or have a particular interest, maybe not in every month, but at different times. And I know I did already say that since we do have a focus on the undesignated fund balance, to kind of keep that in the package so that we can pay close attention to that. I think this is great, and I think it'll be a good way for us to keep track of things. The other thing I think I would like to see is sort of an annual calendar, like what happens throughout the year, when are we issuing debt, when are we so it's sort of like the budget calendar, but plus all those other things that will help keep us all on track. And
Yeah, that'd be great. Any other questions?
any other requests?
No,
Well-
just welcome aboard.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Glad to have you here.
Meeting number 1.
Yeah.
Meeting number 1.
Well, I know that your 2 weeks here have been incredibly busy, and just trying to figure out who all the players are is half the battle sometimes.
And I will say, it's the first job I've ever had an overlap with the prior person, and Anna did a great job of trying to. That 1 week we had an overlap of just feeding me as much information as she could, in a week. She, 15 years of knowledge in 5 days.
Yeah.
So I still call, every now and then I'll shoot her a text saying, "Hey, I'm locked out of this. Who do you call?" Or I need you to come in here and sign this. You're still the administrator on it. So it's nice. She still lives in town. She's right down the road. So she's a great resource. So yeah. All right.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, going on to the next on the agenda is new business, and I believe we have, I don't know whether you're going to address this?
I'll turn it over
To Julie?
Julie here. This is, here again, grant money that were awarded, and it, it's obviously has to be used for specific reasons and so forth like that. We got 45,125, and as Julie's plans are doing, you can explain how she's going to break it up over 2 things. But this is something that we hope as we go forward, we don't have to do this. This is just something that you come before the board of selectmen and moves on, or doesn't have to go that far into that grant account is there. So Julie, I'll let Julie talk to it and explain.
Hello, everyone. Julie Wilson, Deputy EMD for the town. And I just kind of came along to see if you had any questions. If you need a little bit of information, I can kind of describe to you what the grant is.
Please
Okay. Well, we get 2 grants typically every year. There's applications and we have to go through the process of applying for these grants. But in the last 5 years, there was this grant and the EMPG are responsible for bringing in over $650,000 to the town. A good chunk of that, approximately $50,000, is a portion of the EMD salary that we get every year because we're within the 10-mile EPZ of Millstone, which is the emergency preparedness zone. So the past 2 years have primarily been part of a phase of requests that we had put forth to for this grant funding, and it's basically to fill our brand new beautiful EOC. So it's paid for everything in it from the floor up, as far as equipment and computers and desks and training tables. Our ham radio operator and dispatch room directly off of the EOC is funded through that. Last year's budget, we had requested an amount of, I think it was $17,500 for the dispatch console that goes into the communications room. Unfortunately, as Kevin was saying, all these problems with supply and demand, it was not available last year. So we pushed that off, and instead we put the money into the small EOC kitchenette, I guess you could call it, because the actual kitchen in the building is physically pretty far from where the EOC is. And if you had an actual emergency and you're dealing with something critical, you'd want something there readily available. So we found that the 5-foot by 9-foot closet was more than we needed, so that's what we did. So now we're back to having that same computer workstation for the communications room. That's not in this one. That's the one that's going to be part of the $19,000 balance that's left over, because again, we're still trying to maneuver getting those parts and the pieces that we need to put that together. Hoping that it happens before June 30th of next year, because that's when the funds have to be spent by. But if not, I will find other things that we need to purchase and pull from our future requests and use it there. But in this request, part of the responsibility of our office is, should there be an emergency at Millstone, we need to quickly assemble and prepare for an evacuation, depending on what's happening. If it's a major deal and you need to evacuate the entire town, or if it's just anything within a 2-mile radius of Millstone, it's really depending on what's going on. We have to quickly assemble, and police officers have to put out road signs for detours to keep people all flowing out without creating a gridlock. So that's part of the reason why this is the second of 3 signs for the changeable digital signs that you see on the side of the road. This will be our second one out of 3 that we plan to request. Also, the 36-inch reflective roll-up, pop-up signs that are very bright, and usually construction crews use them on roadways and stuff to direct traffic or help with the traffic flow. We have more of those in there. Traffic cones, as you can imagine, the numbers of miles of roads that we have and places that we need to block off. We always try to get some into every request. And the EOC operations computer workstation is for the operations officer. We had one at the old EOC, and that is far beyond its life. It did us well while we had it, but it's time for a replacement. So that's the request for the computer workstation. And again, like Kevin said, it's all in the letter. The funds are guaranteed. We have to go through the hoops to make everything work. So, anybody have any questions?
Okay, we'll make a motion on this. Move to appropriate a special appropriation in the amount of $25,948.80 to cover the cost of purchasing the above listed equipment for the EOC. This requires a town meeting.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Is there any discussion? Any questions for Julie? All right, are all those in favor of approving the special appropriation, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. No abstentions. The motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much
Julie.
for your time.
Appreciate your work on this.
Thanks.
So unfinished business, this sort of we were preparing the agenda with Finance Kevin. At the same time, he was sort of preparing what his new presentation format will be. So we had on here for unfinished business the 2021 audited financial statements. I think we have pretty much addressed where we are with those, but does anyone have any other questions for Kevin in regard to that?
Yep, I just wanted to point out that
Mhm.
OPM did reach out to me. I did notify them of what Kevin had found out. Kevin got a copy of it, so
Mhm.
OPM is aware of where we stand as of right now.
Okay. And did they have anything to say?
No, they just said
Okay.
the updates. So I
Okay.
provided
Okay. And then the other unfinished business was the discussion and possible amendment of the fund balance policy. So where we had left it after the last meeting, there was going to be an attempt to update the fund balance policy with some added information. GASB 54, I don't think Anna had a chance to get to it. And since Finance Kevin has arrived, I don't think he's had a chance to get to it yet either. So we're hoping that that might be something we can work together on this month. Any questions on that?
Just leave it unfinished. Right?
Yep. Public discussion, I see no one here. Board comments, does anyone have anything? That,
Welcome, Kevin.
yeah. Welcome.
I like young Kevin too.
Yeah. May not. Gotta remember who writes your review.
I'm sure.
Yeah. All right. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Thank you very much.
They'll get better.
Yeah.
Official right there.